Troilus is developing the past-producing open pit gold copper project in Quebec, Canada. It operated for 14 years from 1996 to 2010 by Inmet. They produced 2 million ounces of gold and 70,000 tons of copper during that time. They shut down in 2010. We acquired it in 2017. We put out a PEA study in 2020 with an 8.1 million ounce resource. And that was an open pit followed by underground scenario. And I'll talk about how that's evolved over the last couple of years. So like I said, we're in Quebec. We're in the Frotêt-Evans Greenstone Belt, just north of the Abitibi Greenstone Belt, which of course is one of the richest gold environments in the world. There's a lot of similarities with the Frotêt to the Abitibi. Historically, it's less explored than the Abitibi. There's more cover. It's harder. It's more challenging. There's less exposed bedrock. So our capital structure, as of our last fiscal end of quarter, end of October, we had 5.1 million in working capital. However, following that, we did a land sale and sold a bunch of our regional claims to a company called Sayona Mining for 50 million in value. So I'll talk about the details of that on the next slide. We have a strong shareholder base, 60% institutional, 15% of that is Quebec-based. Again, we sold the land to Sayona, so they're now a 9% shareholder of the company. And we have 22% retail and 10% management and insiders. We're at 220 million shares outstanding. Share price right now about 70 cents and $150 million market cap. Yeah, so the details of the sale that we did, you can see the map here. All of those claims were our previous land package. It was about 1,400 square kilometers. So we sold the claims that are colored gray in the map and kept the ones that are colored gold. So Sayona Mining has a lithium project called Moblan right at the end of our road. And they were interested in a big land acquisition. So we carved out all of our favorite targets and precious metals targets on the property and kept those in our land package. So our land package now sits at about 435 square kilometers. So we sold the rest to Sayona. And that was done through a $10 million private placement in the company for 9% of the company and 40 million in shares of Sayona. So obviously we're sitting in a really good cash position going forward. We thought that was a really good deal for us, and we still keep over 400 square kilometers of regional claims to continue working. Here's a closer look at the land package as it is right now. We kept all of our favorite targets that, if you follow our news, you've seen those in the news. We have boots on the ground every summer, teams in the field doing soil surveys, all that awesome grassroots stuff. So we kept, obviously, the mine site itself, the 20-kilometer main mineral corridor that extends from Allanger down to Bienne and Cressida. Also, a new discovery we have of Testard, which we've drilled a couple times over the last couple of years, and as well the Paladar block in the south of the property, which is just south of the Kenorland Rainio discovery, if you're familiar with that. Here's a closer look at the actual mine site itself. So when this mine operated, it operated out of 2 open pits called the Z87 and the J Zone. So those 2 pits host the majority of the resources that we still have today. We've stepped back and drilled as step outs and below the pits. As well, in 2019, we made a new discovery called the Southwest Zone, which is about 3 kilometers from the main pits. So those 3 pits together make up the current resource that we have. Being a past producer, of course, we inherited a lot of value in infrastructure on the mine site. We value this at about 350 million US. So that includes a fully permitted tailings facility with capacity to host the life of mine that we put out in the PEA 2 years ago. Also, we have road access right to site, river crossings. We have road access for fuel trucks and everything right to site right now. Also, a 50 megawatt substation, 60 kilometers of power line. The mill was disassembled, so going forward, we'd have to, we're working on a feasibility study this year, so it would include a construction of a new mill and everything. But this is a significant amount of infrastructure that we've inherited, adding value to the project. So we've had fantastic success over the years of resource growth since acquisition. In 2017, this was a 2 million ounce underground target, sort of similar to Agnico's Goldex. Just organically through 2.5 years of drilling, looking at the PEA in 2020, this grew to 8.1 million ounces, open pit and underground. Since we put that out in 2020, we've done about 200,000 meters of drilling. So we're going to feed all of that drilling into an updated resource estimate coming out in the next month or so, and a feasibility study later this year. So obviously we're expecting resource growth again. We're transforming that open pit underground scenario into an open pit only story for the feasibility. There's always going to be an underground component, upside potential underground, but it's going to be an open pit only scenario. So here's a cross section of the main mineral corridor, the 3 pits. Early in 2022, on the left side, we were focused really strongly on the southwest zone. We had 5 drills going there at one time, really pushing in all directions along strike to expand that as far as we could. We think we have a good outline of what's happening there. There's a small area on a lake that we haven't drilled, so we're going to do that this year. But otherwise, our focus has shifted back to the main pits at Z87. We, late last year, identified 2 high-grade trends, one called X22, one called the Connector, and I'll talk a bit more about those in the next couple slides. Those are shallow, high-grade targets that haven't been drilled before that we're going to spend the next couple of months drilling and outlining for the feasibility study. So here's a 3D view of the Z87 pit. So the blue pit shell is the PEA pit that was put together in the PEA scenario 2 years ago. The red ore shells are the ore wireframes from the PEA. And so we were doing some step-out drilling and intersected right at surface 2.5 grams over 25 meters and 2 grams over 17 meters in what we've now called the X22 zone. So this is an oblique, high-grade shear zone, and where it intersects the main traps of the main orientation of the mineralization, we get these blowouts of higher grades than we typically see at Troilus. So we have a drill on that right now. We're expanding it, infilling it, and over the next couple months, we're going to identify just how many ounces we have to bring into the feasibility study. This is really valuable. As you can see, it's right on the edge of the pit. It's higher grade than we typically see. It would be available early in the mine life to boost the grade in those first couple years. Here's a cross section of the Connector. So we call it the Connector because it's kind of that saddle zone between the 2 formerly mined pits, between the 87 and J zone. You can see on the left side, that's the outline of the PEA pit. The left side is the J pit. All the historical drill holes kind of drilled to the edge of where the pit is and stopped, and nothing ever really got pushed to depth. So again, we had a theory that there could be mineralization connecting the 2 pits in the saddle zone. We've been drilling there and hitting fantastic intervals. Right at the bottom of the pit in hole 422, we hit 138 meters of 1.75 grams per ton equivalent. We stepped forward, drilled up dip of that, and intersected multiple intervals of about 10 to 15 meters over a gram and a couple over 2 grams. So again, we have another drill working on this area right now. Going to infill the gaps and get a good model around this area and bring that into the feasibility. Again, here's another long section of the Connector showing the drilling that we've done. These holes you might have noticed on the cross section, we intersected shallow mineralization but also pushed them to depth, and we've infilled the 87 zone at depth, which would be an underground target as well. So we have shallow mineralization between the 2 pits and mineralization at depth as well.